Hey, good evening, everyone, and I'd like to welcome you and call to order our Lucan Biddulph Council meeting for Tuesday, December the 17th. I would like to acknowledge that I am an ally of Indigenous peoples. The township of Lucan Biddulph is located on the treaty and traditional territory and ancestral lands of many Indigenous peoples and is covered by several Upper Canada treaties. We recognize and celebrate the contributions of Indigenous communities in our shared cultural heritage. Lucan Biddulph is now home to many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples that have a unique relationship with the land and its resources. These peoples continue to shape the history and economy of the township. Lucan Biddulph recognizes the importance of consulting with our Indigenous neighbors in an effort to build constructive, cooperative relationships through meaningful engagement, to inform our decision-making and to build partnerships. We acknowledge historic and ongoing injustices that Indigenous peoples endure in Canada, and we affirm our commitment to honoring Indigenous voices, nations, and cultures, and to moving forward in the spirit of reconciliation and respect. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest? Okay, so what a difference 2 weeks can make. The last meeting that we had to change to a virtual platform because of the snow conditions we were experiencing. And the last 24 hours, all we have experienced is rain. So I would like to take this opportunity to thank Jeff's team, our employees, and our contracted services for the efforts that they put in dealing with the big snow. It really was all hands on deck. And as Jeff said in passing last week, it was a lot of snow. I would also like to thank our residents for the patience shown the municipality. I think everyone realized how difficult it can be to manage that amount of snow in a short period of time. We don't know what the rest of the season will look like, but we can be assured our department is up to the task. I hope the team has been able to recover and prepare themselves for the next wallop that I'm sure will happen at some point. And there are many holidays that are celebrated during the month of December. On behalf of our council and staff, I would like to wish all our residents the best of the season. No matter what observance you celebrate, I hope that you have the opportunity to celebrate with family and friends and acknowledge the real meaning of our celebrations. So we have a staff presentation today, and what a way to end the year with the budget presentation for 2025. And before I begin, I just want it, because Catherine's going to walk us through the presentation, I just want to take the opportunity to thank Catherine and Tracy and the rest of the finance department for all the work that has been put into the budget. Of course, that's all the senior managers as well. We had some really good finance committee meetings. And it should not go unnoticed that the document that is produced does not happen overnight. There's a lot of work that goes into it, and we appreciate the efforts of everyone to get us to this point. So Catherine, over to you.
Thank you very much. And good afternoon, Madam Mayor and members of council. So we're pleased to present to you the 2025 draft budget. So the detailed review of the operating budget was done during the finance committee meetings that we had November 13th, 14th, and 22nd. And then the minutes from those meetings were included in the last council package for the December 3rd meeting. I want to say thank you to staff, the members of the committee, for all their work and input to get us this far. And I have to say it is a team effort for sure. The copy of the draft budget details is also provided in the agenda package. So the 2025 budget was a challenge again as we face rising costs in several areas and inflation factors while we try to maintain expected levels of service. So this presentation and the report show the recommended changes from the finance committee, and we'll look at those later in the presentation. But first I'm going to walk through some of the numbers and how they look with the changes, and that's kind of more education for the public. So our revenue slide there, it shows the various revenue sources which the township uses to fund the general operations and services. As you can see, the taxation is their largest source of revenue. So looking at the taxation revenue, of course, there are three components of property tax: the municipal, the county, and the education, which goes to the school boards. The taxation revenue shown on the previous slide represents the municipal portion of the taxes that is raised to fund the township services, which is only about 52% of the total tax bill. The county council sets the county tax rate, and the province of Ontario sets the education tax rates. And the township collects all this and all the taxes and remits their share to the other parties. So our tax revenue comes from various streams, and this just shows you what makes up that portion of our pie there and the different classes. So this is based on a municipal share of taxes at a 4.42% municipal tax rate increase. So no change on, not too much change. Our residential and farm are still the highest portions. So the impact of the proposed tax rate increase of 4.42% is shown here. And the average residential assessment in Lucan Biddulph is $280,000. So therefore, this property will see an increase of $84 in their tax bill for the year, or $1.62 a week. And this is again, the municipal share of the taxes only. The province announced that the education tax rate won't change for 2025, and then the county change in tax rate has not been determined as they're working through their budget process now. Then we look at the assessment growth for the different tax classes. This isn't a large change again because there was a further delay in the impact property reassessment, but you can see where some changes. This is based on the weighted assessment, and this will show you the change from growth, either positive or negative. So this chart here shows the general expenses. So we have the larger categories again are administration, which includes things like the admin salaries or benefits, insurance, utilities, economic development, our special events, Canada Day, and legal, and our IT. The public works roads is also a large contributor, and I'll go into detail on that in the next slide. The protective services includes our police, fire, building inspector, bylaw officer, crossing guards, animal control, health and safety, cybersecurity, and our conservation authorities. And the reserves is the largest factor, and that is what we are putting away or saving for future projects. So the public works expenses. This shows the breakdown. The larger piece here includes things like all the repairs and maintenance of the equipment, the public works shop, utilities, insurance, tools, sidewalks, drainage, culverts, tree planting and trimming. And salaries and benefits are broken out over all the categories except street lighting. Moving to Parks and Rec. That's another area of our budget. This slide shows the various revenue streams for the Parks and Rec operations. And the township levy is the portion of the taxes collected that fund the Parks and Rec services. And ice rentals, you can see, is also a large contributor to the revenue. On the expense side for Parks and Rec, you can see there administration's the largest portion of those expenses, but it does take a big team of dedicated staff to run the programs and maintain the community center, the arena, the parks, and other facilities and equipment. So now we'll get into some of the changes that we have proposed for 2025. In regards to the garbage and recycling bin fees, staff proposes an increase to the bin fees to cover the increased costs from Blue Water. Bin fees haven't been changed since 2023. So if the increase is as proposed here, the average residents average residents use a small garbage bin. So with the increase, they'll see a change of $5 for the year. But also for the recycling, the bin fee for 2025 is $0. In 2024, the producer took over responsibility of recycling, in April, so we only had a small charge for the first part of the year in 2024. So that'll be eliminated for 2025. So the net savings from 2024 will be $15 for the average resident. And then we'll go through the recommended changes from the Finance Committee from the first draft. So the asset management expense, a portion of that we decided to fund from the tax stabilization reserve of 68,000. The fire levy for Lucan Biddulph Fire, we're going to bring that down to be a 20% increase versus a 24% increase. The sidewalks and curb cuts, reduce that expense by 5,000 because staff feels they can work within that reduced budget. The Lucan Area Heritage donation, originally in the first draft, we had it at 30, but the committee is recommending to keep it at the same level we had in 2024 at $25,000. The consulting and engineering line under planning, we're going to remove $45,000 for the design guidelines. The community improvement plan reduced by 25,000, and the surplus from the 2024 budget for this line item will be moved to the CIP reserve, and then the balance in that reserve will be adequate to support the 2025 projects. Under the administration reserve, reduced by 25,000 and for a net contribution of 50,000, and that's a good start to save for a future ERP project. The streetscape improvement reserve, reduce the contribution to this reserve by 33,000, giving a net contribution of 17,000, and then this amount, along with what's in the reserves currently, will give the reserve balance $200,000 to use towards the 2025 projects. And then Parks and Rec under the community center grounds, we removed $5,000, and this was in relation to the sunshades at the dog park and the field markers. So the total of all these changes would reduce the amount required to be raised from taxes by $223,958. And to balance the budget, we would need another $251,509 to be raised, which would require a 4.42% tax rate increase. Another item that was discussed at the Finance Committee meeting was in regarding the township's role in some events such as Canada Day and the Santa Claus Parade. In other municipalities, these events are organized by other service groups or organizations, and the committee suggested bringing up the topic to full council during the budget presentation. Council may want to consider if the township continues to organize these events. Regarding Canada Day, the inflatable games were organized by an outside organization. But the township would provide a donation towards a cost of those rentals. But this organization is no longer able to support that part of the event. With inflatables, there are costs, insurance considerations, and the need to recruit several volunteers to run the event. The full cost of inflatables is not included in the draft budget. Only the usual donation for this is included. And some new information since the meetings. So we had the announcement from the province where they are reducing the amount of the OPP billing by $114,530. And we received the 2025 roll book from MPAC. And based on our other estimate, we had just a small change in revenue from our draft. So we did a good job with that, getting those reports from MPAC. And then the 2025 transition ratio for the new aggregate property class was released on December 10th. And so I had to adjust it down a bit in revenue. We had the ratio the same as the industrial ratio in our first draft. So the net difference of that is $114,129 of savings. And in the numbers I presented, this amount has been expensed as a contribution to the tax rate stabilization reserve. So in the first draft, we didn't have the water and wastewater budgets. Both of these are funded from rates and not from the tax rate. So this slide shows kind of the summary of what's going on in that system. These items we put together were based on the water rate study and the financial plan that was prepared by Watson's, along with information from the operators. So I have the summary of what's going on there. Again, with the rates that were approved December 3rd, we incorporated that where we have one base charge that includes the traditional flat and capital. So any surplus will go right to reserves. And then the capital projects we discussed at the capital budget meeting last week. Same on the wastewater system. Same, we had the rates were approved in December 3rd, and we looked at the details in our rate study that rolled up to that and made changes based on new information from the operators. And again, there's a surplus there, which includes the capital portion and the capital projects that, again, were discussed last week. So after all that, now council can go back and discuss, ask questions, and just looking for direction regarding the 2025 municipal tax rate at this time. So that's all I have to present. Thank you.
Hey, thank you very much, Catherine. I will turn it over to council at this time. You've all had opportunity to look at the big binder, and there might be line items in there that you question or have ideas about. But as Catherine said, she's presented the recommendations from the Finance Committee to get us where we are today. So open to discussion and comment from council. Deputy Mayor Manders.
I'll probably go in and out just a couple times, but I don't quite know why the Canada Day and Santa Claus Parade events, it says to be discussed at this meeting. So what is the impact to the budget then of that? So that's what I'd like to make sure we discuss, because it says to be discussed and we haven't discussed it. So what's the impact to budget?
It depends what level we want to. So traditionally we do support the Canada Day with the fireworks and the cost of the cake and the hot dogs and that kind of thing. I think we have about $17,000 in the budget for expenses for that. There'd probably be expectation if we don't continue, there'll be some kind of a contribution or role we would still play in that event, but that's for that. And for the Santa Claus Parade, there's no impact at this time in the budget. We had some funds from the prior organizer that organized that, and we're just between that and donations, that's funding those events. So it's just staff time with the Santa Claus Parade side. And then Canada Day, if you wanted to include the inflatables at the same rate that that traditionally people are used to, then there would be additional cost. I don't know what the total cost of inflatables. So we put around $2,000 towards that to that other organization. And I don't know if I think it's around 5,000 to 7,000 maybe for the cost of inflatables. So there'd be a small increase there.
Okay, so my quick comment on that would be just I would go no inflatables. I like the idea of the cake and the fireworks. Santa Claus Parade, our staff, do they get time off in lieu or paid, or is it all volunteer?
It's part of their regular salary, and then if they work that day, then it's time off in lieu. They bank that.
They can if they choose to. Okay.
Or pay out.
Yeah, as far as discussing the Santa Claus Parade, there's no impact to budget, so I don't. I think who's been involved in the past, I believe Maggie's one. I hate naming names because I'm sure there's way more than that, but it seems to have been very successful. So I'd like to have our staff involved and take the time off that they need to offset that time. And then as far as Canada Day goes, I would not do the inflatables.
I think just with the Santa Claus Parade, it wasn't, I think the discussion that we had, if I remember correctly, it was kind of maybe a a heads up to think about the future, because there is some money that was left over, and we have received a donation in the past, but we just have to be cognizant like that money's only going to last for so long. In the past, I think when there was the Santa Claus Parade Committee, they actively looked for sponsors for the Santa Claus Parade. Township takes over. We haven't necessarily done that because that's a lot of work that does that. So I think it was more of a heads up that it's something that we might want to look, just be recognized in the future from a financial standpoint.
So
There could be an impact.
So what is what are we draining our budget then for the Santa Claus Parade?
Sorry, what's,
What are we, the mayor just said that it is impacting our budget, the Santa Claus Parade. I'm just wondering what that is then every year. If we're not collecting the money, then what are we draining then out of it?
so right now we don't have anything in the budget for those line items. You want the total of we have of the funds
I'm just-
available for them to use?
But I'm just,
2023, we spent $2,716.
gotcha. So that's to be aware of in the
Yeah,
future.
yeah, like I
Gotcha.
think it's just a heads up.
Heads
to,
up. Gotcha. No, I'm just going by, the discussion. So to me, the bigger discussions then on the budget is Canada Day, and that's my input on Canada Day. So, yeah, which wouldn't be, I think, in saying what I said, then would be no impact to current what we're looking at. Because it's without the inflatables, this budget at 4.
So just the 2,000 that we would traditionally have donated to that other organization is in the same order, because we didn't change the number from 2024 to this year. So we'd either still have inflatables that work within that budget. And also we put an amount in for the Canada Heritage Grant, an estimate, but we don't have a final number on that. That goes towards those events as well.
Okay.
I think the other thing with Canada Day too is we fully fund the fireworks. And if that's what we want to continue to do, that's great. But I think it should also be recognized that most municipalities don't fund that. So that is where we're different. And everybody loves Canada Day and it's great and nobody's saying not. But again, it's just something to be aware of when we're looking at money that we're not legislatively responsible for having to spend going forward. Did you have anything? Yeah.
But then that would go with potted flowers on our main street.
Well, absolutely.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
absolutely.
We're not, that's not up for discussion.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
flowers on our main street, and there's a lot of stuff here that we're not legislatively,
Mhm.
yeah, a lot of stuff. So, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, no, I think that's, percentage of volume of people participating is high at those two events. So I do like them, just because it's not, 10 people, 20 people showing up and a big expense to our community. So I like those events because of the volume of our participation is probably the highest percentage out of pretty much anything that I can think of that we spend money on as far as that. So I do like those two events, and knowing that the part of that money goes there, but knowing that it's probably our highest percentage of constituents that actually go to them. So.
Do you have anything else? Any other comments from council? Councilor Regan?
Yeah, no, actually, I agree with the deputy mayor on the previous point. I wanted to ask just a couple of questions just on the expenses, Parks and Rec expenses. And I may have missed it, and maybe it's just, so the expenses, for example, for Parks 2024, 98,000, and then it jumps to 150,000 in 2025, which is just a really substantial increase. And I'm just wondering why that is. It was on it's on the page which just says Parks and Recreation Operations Expenses. Sorry, I don't know what line item it is. It's about 9 pages in on the presentation Catherine had.
So we had to add like 30,000 to the soccer complex. Remember the conversations, the notes we had at the finance committee? That was a significant increase to have porta johns there and things like that and the grass and everything like that to maintain those fields. that's an increase because those fields are coming online to be used.
Okay, all right. No, I just wanted to, just in case somebody asked that. And there was one other that, oh, there was just a terminology that I wasn't sure of, but somebody else may go first. Sorry, until I
Okay.
find it.
Any other comments from council? Deputy Mayor?
Just on the arena levy, the revenue there, that like the revenues for all their stuff has been amazingly going up, like, which is great news, like on revenues on all channels, which is really good. So I'm just wondering in the future, like, how does that, you know, the only way the levy goes down obviously is if we charge more or we reduce our expenses, you know, it's really, or that's it. But it does seem like our growth has caused the programs and that to do much better. So I guess I'm just wondering, is there a time and place where as we continue our growth in the programs, we keep seeing the great results that we'll see that levy not increase one year because of that, or how do we, you know, potentially with our growth that you could see that drop $10,000 one year maybe. It's just the programs that have done very, very well.
That depends on the rate of how well the programs and the cost you charge for those. But as you grow, then there's other expenses too. So I can't see the future, but I propose that, I don't know, could stay in the same trend unless you increase your rate significantly.
Yeah.
Because you'll just have expenses on the other side. The more people you have, the more supplies or people or staff time you need to support those programs as well.
It's that balancing act of again, knowing our costs and expenses and everything from a program. But yeah, I mean, I couldn't imagine that levy without the success really of last year. You know, there probably be tougher decisions in this room on that. But it's done well, and it doesn't. I'm glad to see it just going up that, you know, marginally up that much. But I just kind of want to make a comment on that. So
Maybe just on that point, and I don't know, Catherine or Darcy, but is there like a ratio that ideally you shoot for, like a 60-40, a 55-45 split? Or is it maybe an industry standard?
Through you, the mayor, I would say there is some municipalities that are working on trying to find out what their split might be. And I think in the conversation that we've had in previous councils and to the deputy mayor's point, like, I think we need to get to where our ratio is comfortable, and every different sport's different. Like a pool is different than an arena, and a ball diamond is different. So we got to find where those numbers are that we're comfortable. And that does take a bit of work. We don't have an industry standard off the top of my right now, but I think we got to work to one. I know, I think it's Strathroy is really working hard at trying to find what their ratios make sense. So I've definitely had my ear to the wall on that one to see where they land. But as of right now, I don't have one to run with.
Daniel?
Sure, I just have really two quick ones, if I may. So, first of all, so the province reduced the amount of the OPP building by 114,000. Do we know, just going forward, thinking about the future, is that going to just one time? Is that going to be all time? Do we know?
As noted in my report, we don't know at this time if that's going to be ongoing, which is one of the reasons why I recommended just putting that into reserve, because we don't know if that'll continue in 2026. So you might want to have some money in tax stabilization to support a larger increase perhaps in 2026 for that.
Okay, no, and just one really quick one. So I don't know what this is transition ratio. That's the first time I've heard that term. I just want to know what that is.
So when the province creates a new subclass, they'll have, instead of bringing it down, so in 2026, the ratio will be, I think, between 0.6 and 1.1 or something. So, but right now, those properties are traditionally at the industrial level, which is higher. So they kind of transition you into that lower one in the 2025 in 1 year. So kind of somewhere in between, and then that's legislated that amount, that rate, and then the ratio range, that gets set by the county. So for 2026, wherever they want to put that new class in, based on the range that they're legislated, they'll pick one in that range. So it's kind of stepping you into a reduced amount of taxes on those properties.
All right, thank you. Got it. Thank you.
Okay,
So my concern on the OPP is that obviously we're not getting billed for it, but we're gonna bill our ratepayers for it for that amount. The potentially. So I'm a little bit afraid it gets lost in the shuffle next year. So if they say, which we don't know, that is now back, that expense now, that was a 1 year, be prepared for it, it's coming. And that becomes 114,530, and we put it in tax stabilization. And all of a sudden we go, oh, we got this big $114,000 bill again. Well, we really don't then, if we're gonna keep it. So, not, I think probably you don't want to put a fork in your eye if you do another reserve under, OPP or something, but is there any way to like earmark that in tax stabilization or that's the OPP? Because what I'm afraid of is staff and council getting lost and us collecting it. And then we get the bill and then we're going to start off the budget at a 2% increase or whatever that amount is. And I don't want to see that next year. Or we don't collect it and we do reduce the tax rate by that amount, or it's earmarked through the whole year that just slides into that. So for me, it's one or the other.
Comment on that? Yes, I can add notes to all the information that we have, or if council would like to see a separate reserve, you can certainly give direction on doing that, or say to earmark that in that category. I can do.
We can't even look at it that our tax stabilization is reduced like that amount even next year. Like if we really got to understand that's, there, and then obviously, hopefully throughout the year, if there's a better understanding that it's not coming forward, then at least at budget next year, we can deal with it accordingly, maybe to soften, use that to soften the increase next year. But the unknown, I agree, because with the not the proper information, we just don't know. But I just don't want to get caught up in that as a new expense if we're collecting it for our ratepayers.
no, I think no, I think that's vital. To make sure that there's notes and to trust our treasurer to remind us at budget time next year of that for sure. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I just, if I may, Madam Mayor, I just wanted to say, we're very thankful, obviously, for that 114,000, but there's no talk out there that that's going to continue next year. So if councils, if there was a municipal council that dropped it by that equivalent amount, you're kind of not doing yourself a favor, because you're digging a hole, and then next year you're going to have to come out of that hole if there's no subsidy, and it's even going to be worse. So I think what you're proposing is the best way to do it, and we can draw that out. And yeah, it's one more column that we put on the reserve sheet or whatever, but it's definitely doable.
I don't think it needs to be a new reserve. I think as long as Catherine makes notes to the effect that 114,000 that's sitting in tax rate stabilization is earmarked for OPP costs, I think we can be.
Until we have a better understanding. Yeah, 'cause if it's a 1 year holiday or whatever their program is, or however they're doing that, it's subsidizing us, then we'll know better in a couple of years, I guess. But yeah.
Like, I agree, the unknown is out there, but there was a reason why everybody's bill went up a certain amount because of costs and everything. So at some point, it's going to catch up with us, you assume, right? So.
I think also too, and it might have been the committee, you guys did a great job on this, getting to where we are. But I don't know if, again, the public knows where we started at, and I missed it at the first slide, and I didn't look at the other committee meeting. So I believe before you started, it was around 8% or 8.2. I just kind of want to make a note of that, where you started and where we're at today.
Correct. We started at 8.4%. I got down to the 4.42. So council can leave it at that or go one or other direction.
I just want to make a note of that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, thanks. All right, any other comments or suggestions from council? Going once. No other suggestions? I think that for anybody that's watching, the slideshow was very high level. I would encourage anybody to go back to the actual agenda and read Catherine's report that is attached to the budget, because I think it highlights some of these items in a little bit more depth. Right, well, there's no more discussion. Yep, Deputy Mayor.
The implementation, I always get screwed up on in my head of the, you know, what classes here make up the assessment growth. And is there anything missing here that's out there in our community that, you know what, that we can look forward to next year? Obviously the shopping center, I'm sure, is there. Everything at our industrial park would be included that's up and running. What I mean by that, I always forget the name of the the foul place that they're gonna be.
Oh, at Harvest Group.
Yeah.
Harvest Spring?
Yeah, like, are they, you know what I mean? Like, those are some real nice assessment growths. You might be sitting there going, Dave, don't get too excited about that because they're already in here. That's what I'm wondering. You know, just that's some pretty exciting, I think, growth that we're about to have then. Can you name a couple or any, or am I right or wrong? Or is it like, is it fully commercial over here?
So we had a lot of assessments for the commercial that was received this year. Those are included. As far as that, the Eversprings property, that's not completed. So once that's completed, then it will come on. So that's not included. There may be some of the apartment buildings surrounding us that may not be included at this time. I'm looking at Tracy because she sees all those subs.
Waiting for one. Sorry, yes, we're waiting for one, and I believe the one beside us here has some steps coming to, the Fuse.
Okay, so the whole Fuse building's not on here?
No,
So the whole Fuse, the one industrial, big industrial really, that'll be a large one. Obviously, I have an apartment building at the far end of town. Good. No, I just, you know, that's good news with some moderate growth. So, because those are obviously our higher tax assessments. So no, thank you. I was just curious on that.
Okay. All right, well, if there's no other discussion. Sorry, messed up here. If there is no other discussion, so the next steps are to receive the report, and that as the recommendation is worded now, that we give the Treasury Department direction regarding the final municipal tax rate increase. But I think the bylaw and everything is being brought back. It'll be brought back in January. Correct, Catherine?
I can bring a final report back in January, and so incorporate the operating and the capital all in one and adopt it then. The tax rate bylaw won't come forward until the county has set the rates, the ratios. So that won't happen. I'm not sure their timeline, probably not till the spring. So as long as we do it before before August 1st, we're good. But as soon as they have those rates, that's what we'll bring.
Madam Mayor, I was just going to add in that gives the department heads authority to move forward with their capital projects as well. We had a discussion earlier today about once that approval is given by council, then they can get going and get the tenders out for projects early on in 2025.
Well, I guess that then on the capital side of things, so we did have our capital budget meeting last week. I think we really only received it for information. I don't know if full direction was given for every project. There was a lot of comments made about, you know, the project list. So I guess where are we with that side of things when it comes to capital works?
So today's staff met and went through the list and working through and make a plan for what needs to be done in 2025 and what could be moved out or eliminated. So the plan was to bring a report back in January with those recommendations, kind of the final look. And I can do the operating at the same time, a full budget approval and a staff report during a regular council meeting, probably maybe not the first meeting, maybe the second meeting, depending on how the schedule goes, is we could do, or unless council feels they want to approve the operating budget tonight and bring back the final capital in January, or we can do it all at one time in January.
Doing it, I think, giving you direction tonight on operating and then bringing them back, both back, when first or second meeting, I'm sure it'll be the second meeting. I think that's a realistic timeline and approach. If that works for all the, directors. Yeah. Okay. So with that direction, that the wording on this motion still is good. All right, so mover and a seconder that report number FIN 16-2024 be received for information and that council give the Treasury Department direction regarding the final 2025 municipal tax rate increase. Yeah, sorry. We just got a bit of an edit going on.
The direction would be if we're gonna report, but I don't know if you wanted to make if there's other changes that would have to incorporate, if you're comfortable with the 4.42, or if you want us to work on putting in a different number. But if that's where you're comfortable, that's what I'll end up bringing back in January. But the direction would be if there's something different that you wanted to see,
Right.
like, okay, work the numbers, we want to see a 5%
Mhm.
increase or a 4%, something like that. But
Well, I've given council lots of opportunity for ideas and areas of where, things of interest that they might have. And everybody seems happy with the document that's been presented. Okay, so the motion then in front of us is that the report number FIN 16-2024 be received for information, and that council direct staff to bring back the operating budget in January of 2025 with a 4.2% tax increase for 4.42. So a tax increase of 4.42% for 2025. Mover and a seconder for that, please. Councillor Regan and Deputy Mayor Manders. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much. Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Catherine and Tracy. Appreciate all the work, and again to the staff for getting us to this point. So thank you. Okay, we're just going to continue on with the agenda. We have a public meeting that we have to go into at 6. And we have a delegation that will follow that, but we can certainly move along with the business of the meeting. So we can move to item 8, which is the minutes. And we've got 2 sets of minutes in front of us for November 29th and for December 3rd. And if council doesn't need to make any edits, I would ask for a mover and a seconder to adopt those as circulated. Councillor Westman and Deputy or Mayor Manders, did you have a question? Oh, okay. Okay. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Business arising from the minutes. Nothing's been added to it. And the procurement one, Josh is going to be joining us later this meeting, so that will look after that. Did council want anything added to our business arising? Okay, seeing none. Okay, then going to correspondence. There was one letter that was pulled, one request that was pulled by staff from Jessica's house, and the letter's pretty self-explanatory, but Darcy, did you have anything that you wanted to add to that?
To you, Madam Mayor. Not too much to add. I just had a representative from Jessica's house stop into the arena, looking for the use of the facility, and they were asking for in-kind. So they then sent me an email as a request from Jessica's house to council if they would give the in-kind contribution for the use of the gym facility, the auditorium facility.
And just, do we know for that day and that time period, what that cost would be?
I'm just looking it up here. Give me 1 sec. It would be $420.
Thank you. Then I would ask, I would look to council for direction on this request. Deputy Mayor Manders?
Yeah, so will that, will that come off of our, how does that work off our donations for next year? Yeah, but I do like the volume of people that potentially could be visiting our community, the spin off hopefully to some restaurants and our local businesses. So, but anyways, I do support it and I'll make that motion.
Okay, thank you very much. So a motion to support from Deputy Mayor Manders. Can I get a seconder, please? Councillor Westman. Is there any further discussion or comment on that? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much. Moving, were there any other items that council wanted to speak to in the letters that we've received in the past 2 weeks? Okay, then a mover and a seconder to receive those items of correspondence for information purposes. Deputy Mayor Manders and Councillor Regan. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Committee reports, Blue Water.
No, we meet Thursday.
CEDC.
I'd like to make my report first week in January, if I might. No,
Do you have it for tonight?
I do not, ma'am.
I'm only teasing. I'm only teasing.
prepared, Deputy Mayor. No, I would.
Yes,
just rather
that
do
would
it
be fine.
first.
For January, that's fine. Yep. Lake Huron, we did meet, and it was a short meeting with a lot of year-end housekeeping items to discuss on that. So nothing to report at this time. Nothing from fire boards, I don't think. Nothing from ABCA, it looks like. Parks and Recreation.
Well, I just have a brief one.
Same
Yes.
request?
No, no, ma'am. We did have a meeting December 12th. It was just Darcy gave us a report, the activity report, basically the same one that he gave to council. Just highlighting some of the successes that we've had so far, just recently, actually, with the 2024 craft show, breaking all records, had an attendance of over 3,500 customers. Proceeds both at the door, total revenue in excess of $31,000. Great use of the ice time and ice rental. And they're multi-purpose hall. The one that sort of struck me is that it hosted over 55 events, dance classes, birthday parties, celebrations. So it's getting used quite a lot. And I just thought I would just mention those things. There was others as well, but I can have another full report for you in the first week of January. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor. And I think that's it for committee reports. Staff reports. Anything, Ron? Catherine already gave a great report. Anything else? Planning is going to be at 6. Anything from Public Works, Jeff? Anything from Parks and Recreation? Economic Development?
Thank you. Through Madam Mayor, I have one report this evening, and that is the result tenders, result tenders for the industrial lands that closed last Thursday, December 12th. Just bring up my file here. Excuse me for a second. So we received a total of 6 tenders. Each lot actually received a tender. As you can see in the report, gives the summary of each amount that we received. Following that, staff met and we have provided council with some direction, some options on moving forward with these tender results. Staff are recommending we conditionally accept the tender from SP Properties for lot A and B, and that the tender obviously received for lot C, which is the corner lot, was quite low comparatively. So staff discussed the options of, we can, in a report, kind of give some different options we can do. We conditionally accept lots, the tenders for lot A and B from SP Properties and reissue a tender for lot C. We could do a quick tender release with another closing of January 3rd. Another option is to, again, conditionally accept the tenders for lot A and B, release lot A for sale. And we could reissue the tenders if council's not happy with any of those prices for A, B, and C, or we could not accept any of them and hold off until mid-year of next to reevaluate the status of those lots. So like I said, this report for council tonight, staff did recommend conditionally accepting A and B and reissuing a tender for lot C. So up for council's discussion at this time.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Lisa. I just want to say option 2, it's the release lot C. I think you said release lot A. So anybody that's watching, option 2 is to conditionally accept the tender submissions for lots A and B and to release lot C for sale. So just to be clear on that. Okay, comments or questions, suggestions from council on this report? Councillor Regan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I'm thinking that when we started the tender process, to see what was there and to see what kind of interest there was. And I think, in my opinion, I think the tender process here served its purpose. And I think for lot A and B for those prices, I feel very comfortable with. And I would support option number 1. Just say to accept A and B and then retender lot C.
Okay. Any other discussion? Deputy Mayor Manders?
Yeah, I don't mind that recommendation. I guess at the start of this, again, my thing was to set a baseline for the pricing. see if the pricing would accomplish servicing, which it does. Lot C, to me, we have a baseline price now somewhat on A and B. Assuming lot C, I'm assuming the bidders felt that it would go for a bit more of a premium, and or maybe more people bidding on it. But then if you look at the lot, the side lot line's 57.8 meters compared to 73.1 meters on the middle lots because of that daylight corner. So it is a different shaped lot. It's 57.8 coming across 48.3. So it is, I mean, I think we need to recognize that too. So I guess, you know, I like the fact that we didn't, again, the market set, we want to see if the market, it was a good enough market to set the price, and we wanted to see the activity. If we had 15, 20 bids, I'd be saying we should tender this again. There was little interest in the lots. We had 5 companies in total, interested in 3 lots. Or yeah, 5 companies, I think, total interested in 3 lots, or 5 people or whatever. So I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to putting a 15% premium from lot A and B. So at the 120, that'd be put at 132,000 to 139,000 on lot C, and putting it for sale by us, by our township, and being able to speak to it that the other bid for that was 70,000. So that's twice as much. It is 15% higher than lot A and B. And there really wasn't much interest in it, but at least it can be for sale. If it sells great. If it doesn't sell, then we can always lower it a bit. But I think that pricing would be probably close to, when I look at the size of that lot, it'd be, you know, probably one of the more valuable pieces in that property at that price at between 132 to 139. But again, I think we can speak to it. And part of it, you know, when you do look at that shape of that lot, part of it could have been because of that too. I mean, that one lot line is only 57.8 meters long. So, but I think having that access to Sainsbury, to me, that is a, you know, if you're going to run some form of business or coming in and out, I think that would be the better lot, just myself. But so anyways, I certainly wouldn't have an issue listing it for sale for, again, 15% more than lot A and B, and seeing what happens.
Thank you. Any other comments or suggestions from council? Yeah, I guess I would probably lean towards the deputy mayor's train of thought and conditionally accept them and then just release it for sale. And as the deputy mayor suggested, we sell it on our own. I think we can do that. I think it'd be a pretty straightforward purchase. But I like the idea. I think we'll see what happens, but that would be my preference on that one. Just given, especially with the quick turnaround to January 3rd, I mean, that obviously that date we could play with tender, but just given the holidays, I don't know. I think the for sale, as Deputy Mayor said, the tender did what it was supposed to do for us. It answered the questions as to what a market rate might be. And I think now that we know it, then, you know, we attach a price to it and go forward. So your math is better than mine, Deputy Mayor. So at 15%, it was
15% on 120 is just 132, and or no,
it's 130,
130, 138,
138,
Yeah.
575. That's
Yeah,
15%.
But yeah,
So-
or one, you know, I think even 139.9 or 139, or it doesn't, yeah, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, that to me, it just, again, I think it's, yeah, I mean, I was surprised at, well, I do want to comment again on, I thought there would have been more, I did think there would have been more interest within an hour radius, really for that. So it really spoke volumes. Again, I would not be saying we should list it for sale if it wasn't for, if we had 15, 18 people, we had we had 5 people interested in 3 lots, so. Yeah, I think, and then also too, it doesn't, that should, I know the servicing, there was a lot of caution in the servicing and the contingency, which we shouldn't have to use in a farm field. So at least even going forward, it should cover the cost, even though I think that's still, I think Dylan's report was a little higher than that, but we should be okay on the servicing and still have that available for sale. And strategically, if it doesn't sell, not the worst lot to have for the township compared to lot B. You know, I mean, really, if it sits and we own it as a township, we might even strategically do something with it. I mean, you know, I don't know what, I'm just saying that'd be the best one for us to have left over, lot C compared to B, so.
Lisa?
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. So I guess the original reasoning was for tender. That way we know if we want to move ahead with the project as a whole, right? We are conditionally accepting A and B pending a little bit on the sale of C. So and I guess that was our kind of, making sure that we're good before we move ahead with the project. I guess if council is comfortable moving ahead with A and B, regardless with the cost and the sale, kind of we'll probably even out at the end of the day and then see what happens with lot C. I guess that's the direction. So initially, yeah, that's why we kind of said, let's guarantee lot C before we move ahead with the project. But if council's direction is, yeah, we're comfortable with lot A and B, move ahead and see what happens with lot C on a for sale basis, then that's, I think, the direction that we would kind of look from council on that they're happy with A and B regardless, and then move forward with the project, sell lot C.
Yeah, no, and that you're right, because again, if I wouldn't say to proceed if we were getting 50,000 for lot A and 50,000 for lot B, and we were hoping to get 50 for lot C, then it would be, it'd be like, should we even be doing this? But now, obviously from our last report we just had from the treasurer, kind of exciting to get lot A and B going also from a secondary standpoint of assessment and taxes. And, that's for us, it's selling these is one thing, but then revenue generating too is under that timeline of 2 years. So
So there's a change in
Oh.
legislation. Did you want to speak to that, Ron? Sorry, council should know that.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the Deputy Mayor. So they're legislatively, the recent Planning Act changes, our lawyer, Dave Woodward, actually alerted us to this, that we can't do it in 2 years. It's got to be 3 years. Isn't that correct, Lisa? Yeah. So we have to give a 3-year limit. But
okay, well, that's good to know. And if there were, and that would have changed me, in my opinion, if there would have been multiple bidders on their plan and if they'd be willing to me, lawyers can figure stuff out and make a shorter timeline if we had 20 bidders on it. But anyways, we got to live with the 3 years, live with 3 years in light of that. So that's too bad. But anyways, yeah, no, the servicing at least can, I feel those two at 240,000, we got to be close to the servicing of those 3 industrial lots. And then proceed with lot C, hoping that it will, again, I don't know what scared people off on that. If it was, the people that were bidding, again, if it was the dimensions or they thought it was going to be very sought after, I don't know. I can't answer that question, but there was one bid on there though of 70,000. So if we're going to go at 15% premium, then we are listing it for double the amount that was submitted. So.
One more.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes, and maybe Jeff might be able to talk to that, since lot A and B are purchasing by the same person, the same company, I should say. Maybe, I don't know if that's an opportunity to get a savings for lot servicing or not. I can probably look to Jeff to maybe comment on that. If it's a combined, if he's using it as one parcel, then does that change our servicing costs at all once we meet with the potential purchaser? What does that change our numbers at all? Maybe reduce it a little bit. I'm not sure. I can let Jeff can maybe talk to that.
Yeah, through the mayor. I mean, we can definitely look at a combined, but realistically, we're selling 2 separate lots as we're discussing tonight. And I guess to combine something there, to combine those lots, would go, we could look into that, but at this time, I would suggest that we keep to the plan. And they're labeled as being sold as two separate developments. So I'd keep it at that for now, and knowing full well that if we can save something going forward, then we will.
For sure. That's good to know. Thanks. So there is a motion that is attached to the report, but I would look to council. Is that the motion that you want, or is there another one that you would like to make? Okay, Deputy Mayor.
I'll make a motion, and Lisa can correct it, or just that we accept lot A and B, and that that is sold, and that we put for sale lot C at 139.9.
Okay, so and that's going to be seconded by Councillor Regan. So I'll just read it and how I think it should, just based on the options. That council directs staff to conditionally accept the tender submissions for lots A and B from SB Properties Limited, and further that lot C be released for sale for 139.9. I guess whenever that paperwork can be put into play. Okay. So that was the deputy mayor and Councillor Regan. Yes, yep. No. Can you?
Should we also have a date in the motion for the sale? So do we need to put a date? Do we have a deadline, a date or anything for that, or just? No,
Just goes for sale.
just goes for sale.
Mhm.
Okay, all right, okay. Okay.
Okay. All in favor of that? And that's carried. Thank you very much. Did you have anything else, Lisa, from
No,
economic
thank you.
development? Okay. Councillor comments. Councillor Westman.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that the lighting of the lights on Friday was very successful. There was a good turnout. I was able to be there to help support the Lions Club and their efforts, and we had some great discussion about what we can do next year with the scouting and the Lions partnering together. So yeah, it was a great night. It was pretty good weather. It was cool, but it was good weather, and it was fresh and crisp. But the kids, everybody had a great time. The kids had a great time, and I think it was a really good event for the community. So.
No, I think it worked out well. It was nice to have snow. I think Lisa and I were saying that in the number of years that we've been doing it, this might have been the first year that there was like snow cover. So and it wasn't raining and it wasn't muddy. So it was good. So yeah, your comments are well taken, Councillor Westman. Any other councillor comments? Deputy Mayor Manders.
Oh, this is for Jeff, I guess. I just in light of the event that we just had, snow event, and my understanding is mechanical breakdowns on the sidewalk machine. I'm not sure on the plows and that, if there was some mechanical issues on that. And again, first time on council ever that this has happened with as opposed to, 1 centimeter, 2 centimeters, as opposed to a 3-foot dump, wake up. But I guess my question is, in my office is in Delaware, and they could cut grass in Delaware. Adelaide Metcalf, I assume similar. It's a very narrow stream. Has a county or yourself, or would you be in favor of, if it's such a tight streamer, of reaching out at an agreed upon rate, whether it be $189 for a plow operator, or $150 for a snow plow, just to be able to truck it back here to use, or a sidewalk cleaner from another municipality where they're not getting hit with this storm, when the storm's over, to help us out of this? Like, what would be your comment back if we were cutting grass here and Strathroy got hit by that, and they asked you, Jeff, could you loan us our sidewalk plow? Would you simply tell them no? And if they asked you, could we have a man potentially, if we're cutting grass here and they had the same storm we had and they wanted to use our snowplow, or have an operator use it, what are your comments on that?
Yeah, I think my comments through the mayor would be that if it was the reversal and we were cutting grass here, I would want a very defined reason why our assets would be moving out of the township into another municipality and what that need and what that scope of need would be. I think it would have to be something, and we've talked about this at the Public Works Managers. We've all said that if there is, if there is a need that reflects on, and I don't want to say life-threatening, but something that is really serious, then we're all willing to help one another out. But there has to be a defined need there, because if we send a piece of equipment to another municipality and it breaks down, and all of a sudden we have snow here, we're not cutting grass, and we no longer have that asset, it becomes a real, we have to answer then to the taxpayer that has paid for that asset to be here. So you have to be a little bit careful on rearranging that sort of thing, because our taxpayers have been invested in equipment here, and to have it go somewhere else and break down or get and not have that access here, then I think is something I would worry about if the roles were reversed. If we were in a life-threatening situation here, which I don't think we were, I think at the end of the first day on the Monday, we still had our streets all opened up.
Yeah.
So
And I think the key is the first part there, what I said was an agreed upon rate within the county. So you're right, like $189 an hour, dollars an hour. So that covers at least our asset, or whatever, $200 an hour, 250, whatever. Again, everyone, the municipality must know their costs, and depreciation and everything else and their hourly rate. But it just, I do think it was a bit of an eye opener on, again, I know we're looking at potentially another sidewalk, but it was, certainly, and again, to not blaming at all, nobody other than weather and again, breakdowns and equipment. So we can't humanly do anything about that, other than it was an interesting how narrow the storm was, and looking at the forecast. But I agree with you, all of a sudden, I think the forecast did deem that it was going to stay pretty narrow for a few days, but just to be able to get our area cleaned up because it was so clear elsewhere. But I just want to make the comment just to see if there was, again, I think like anything, we should learn, like, what did we learn from it? What can we do forward better? If we can't do anything going forward better, then that's the message we send. So.
Councillor Regan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just sort of along the same line, at the Parks and Rec Committee, there was an issue brought up by one of the members who was a former principal, talking just a little bit about sort of the snow event, and just some of especially on the Wednesday when the schools were open. And again, not a reflection on anybody, but just the schools were open on the Wednesday and the kids were walking down the middle of the roads, and there is some talk on Facebook and that sort of thing. But the question was basically about the communication that we have with maybe not so much the Ministry of Education, but even with the Thames Valley Board. It was brought up, and there was, like I said, there was discussion at PRAC about it, and I thought it was worthwhile maybe bringing up here because of these snow events and the fact that sometimes, like in the city of London, South London, there was no snow, but in Lucan Biddulph, I couldn't get out of my driveway and I couldn't get to school that day. And I'm just wondering if it's worth maybe a conversation with our trustee or with the board about that communication with the township. I know we don't have anything to do with closing schools. I get all that, but I'm just wondering with communicating to our residents, because the situation when, whoever makes the call lives in, St. Thomas with no snow, and we've got 3 feet up here, just with, like I said, with those narrow, we all know what streamers are like. So I'm just wondering if it's worth to have a conversation with the board, or if it's worth having a conversation with somebody, just saying like, can we have better communication? Because there was a real concern on the Wednesday. And again, it may happen again, but there was a concern on the Wednesday with kids walking. And again, we couldn't get to the sidewalks. That again, it's not a reflection on staff. It's just, it was a dangerous situation. So I'm just wondering if that's something we could look, I don't know if I'm looking to Ron or if I'm looking to Jeff, maybe about just, can we have a conversation about that?
Are you saying, so these are the conditions in Lucan Biddulph?
Yeah.
And is it our responsibility, or should we have that communication with Thames Valley to say, these are the conditions here? Does that affect your decision on opening, closing, delays, that
Yeah,
sort of
I'm
thing?
just thinking about this, yeah.
Is that
it's-
where you're headed?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
Again, I know it's not our call, but we live here and we've got a huge, look at Biddulph is a huge, like, it's a huge area, right? So, I mean, and the Thames Valley, is a huge area as well, so.
And certainly we're in the snow belt, so
Yeah.
that does make a difference. But I might look to Jeff to jump in at this point, because I know Joe Dewan, our senior operator out there, has a direct line to Murphy Bus Lines. And I know they're in constant communication, but at what point is it our responsibility, I guess? And I'm asking Jeff, the Director of Public Works here, but.
Yeah, a couple of things in the background. We used to have communication with Murphy Bus Lines, but there's been a change in the way the school board runs their system. And that we don't really have that direct communication with the busing company anymore. Second thing we got to keep in mind is, if it was a business or if it was some other, very important dairy farm, something that needs trucks to get in, we're always open for communication. It's just, we're not here to manage other people's businesses. So if the school board would like communication or would like to reach out, we would be all more, willing to give an update and that sort of thing. But I don't know if it's our position right now to manage their closures or their situation. Same as if it was a business that needs access to the roads, I'm not sure I should be directing that business rather than the business contacting me for information. That would just be my opinion on the situation. But in the past, we used to have direct communication with the buses on a regular any snowfall event, and that communication has seemed to have gone away with the current situation.
Yeah, Daniel, I think that came up at Parks and Rec meeting, but I'll be a little more direct on it. We're tiptoeing around it too much, is when the side plow machine quit working, and we had a mechanical problem. It's not about reporting snow, not about reporting weather, but it did appear that there was a lot of danger to the kids having to walk on the roads to the school. And at that point, I guess the question is, did we learn something from this storm that it's not a weather event I'm talking about? It's not a weather event. It's too much snow on the sidewalks for the kids to walk on the sidewalks, so they had to walk on the road due to a mechanical failure. The only way the school board knows to potentially close the school because there's danger is to have a point of contact. And that's the question. It's the first time this happens since I've been on council. We had a mechanical failure that I do think put our kids at danger walking to school that one day, maybe the Tuesday morning, Tuesday night, if we would have known. I don't know the timing of it when it was, but again, it doesn't sound like, if we don't have one, should we have one? And I'm not talking weather. I'm not talking about a snow event. What I'm talking about is when we have something happen that we need to notify someone of the danger due to a mechanical failure. And should we?
Yeah, and I think that's a question for level of service. Are we guaranteeing our sidewalks are open to the kids walking to school on that? I'm not sure other municipalities are guaranteeing that.
We can't though on a mechanical failure. Like I'm saying, I'm just saying we had a failure in our equipment, like we couldn't. It's perfect all year round, but we can't obviously when there's a mechanical failure with that volume of snow. And I guess that was the question. That is the question at PRAC, is that, again, with the mechanical failure, should we have been able to let them know that there was danger? Because again, we're not talking about the forecast, and there's no way for them to know we have mechanical failure. I don't think that's a bad thing to verify if they're, and like I said, if the school board says, I don't care, we don't care that you have mechanical failure, the kid's got to walk on the road, then and that's what we tell the residents. I got no issue with that. That's what they say. We don't want to know you have mechanical failure. You can't clean your sidewalks on a major snow load like that. Then that's the message we give. We just tell them the truth. If they'd like to know that, I think we use that event though as an option, as a saying, this is what happened. in hindsight, if we had a point of contact, we probably would have told them we had mechanical failure, couldn't clean our sidewalks off. Kids are all going to be walking on the roads and it's going to be dangerous. It's happened the first time in 12 years with me being here. That is the question that they're asking.
So Madam Mayor, through you to the deputy mayor, I think we all like to learn. And when we go through these kinds of events, we try to learn things as we go here. So certainly I think to take the positive out of that, let's have a discussion. I did try and make contact with the principal. She's going to be calling me about another issue that we do have over there. But when she does call, I will ask her, can we do, I'll outline the situation you just expressed here and talk about how can we deal with that? What's a better way to move forward?
Volume of snow and the equipment, that equipment going down has never happened. It's never happened. But then from here, then why, but if it happens again, even if it's 12 years from now, is there and I don't even know who would be a point of contact that, again, that's the question. If the school board again says, again, if Lucan Biddulph can give someone a point of contact, it's not up to us to close the school. It's not, but I think it is up to us to tell them on mechanical failure, because that's not in the forecast. Then, it's up to us to step up and tell them. But if they don't want to know, then that's fine. We need to give that message back to our residents.
And it's not like
Yeah.
we're telling them what to do. We're just
No,
advising them
no.
of the situation. That's all we're
100%.
doing. That's all we're doing.
100%.
Okay. Any other councillor comments? Okay, so at this time, we're going to take a recess until 6 o'clock. If I can get a motion, mover and a seconder to recess for 10 minutes. Councillor Westman and Councillor Regan, all in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. And we will be back at 6 o'clock for the public meeting. So we are reconvening our Lucan Biddulph Council meeting for Tuesday, December the 17th. So we do have to go into a public meeting and sit as the Committee of Adjustment under the Planning Act. And we're doing that at 2 minutes after 6. And if I can get a mover and a seconder to put us into the Committee of Adjustments in the Planning Act or the public meeting. Councillor Hodgins and Councillor Westman. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much. So we have one item in front of us, and this for a application for a property on Whalen Line, and I will turn it over to Alyssa to walk us through it. And there is a zoning bylaw amendment as well. And are you going to speak to both of them at the same time? Okay, perfect. So I will turn it over to you, Alyssa.
Great, thank you. Through the chair to the mayor and members of council, my name is Alyssa Soldo. I am a planner for Middlesex County, providing my professional planning services tonight for the township of Lucan Biddulph. There are 2 applications being brought forward tonight regarding the same property at 6407 Whalen Line. These applications, specifically for a consent and zoning bylaw amendment, will be addressed together in this presentation. These are agenda items 6.1 and 6.2. The applicant is seeking to dispose of a dwelling deemed surplus to a farming operation by way of a land purchase and sale. They propose to sever a lot with a frontage of 137 meters on Whalen Line in an area of 0.959 hectares, containing an existing single detached dwelling and a shed. The proposed retained lands would maintain a frontage of 542 meters on Whalen Line in an area of 26.57 hectares. The applicant has applied for a concurrent zoning bylaw amendment, which proposes to rezone the retained agricultural lands from the general agricultural zone to a site-specific agricultural zone to restrict its use for agricultural purposes and recognize a reduced minimum lot area. It would also rezone the severed portion from the general agricultural zone to the surplus dwelling zone to permit the existing dwelling and its accessory building. The subject property as a whole is currently a 27.5 hectare lot on the south side of Whalen Line, southeast of the intersection at Whalen Line and Sainsbury Line. The lands are legally described as north part of Lot 8, concession north boundary, in the township of Lucan Biddulph, county of Middlesex, municipally known as 6407 Whalen Line. Surrounding land uses are agricultural in nature. The property is designated agricultural according to the county and township official plans and is zoned general agricultural according to the township zoning bylaw. No comments were provided by the public prior to the development of the report. Provided agency comments include Middlesex County Emergency Services regarding 911 property addresses, the Middlesex County Engineer regarding land dedication for County Road 55, which is Whalen Line. Hydro One just provided some general comments and no objection to the application. And the Lucan Biddulph Building Division regarding the location of the septic system and the distribution bed mantle, which has been added as a condition just to confirm those property lines. As identified in the planning report, staff are of the opinion that the proposal is consistent with the provincial planning statement and conforms with the county official plan and the provided surplus farm dwelling tests. The planning report outlines the existing dwelling was built in 2009. This meets the county's 10-year average age requirement, although the township's official plan still requires the house to be built prior to 1999, as OPA 10 remains under appeal at this time. Staff believe still that the intent of the tests contained in the township official plan can be met. Given the above, I am recommending approval of the consent application B19-2024, subject to the conditions provided in the report and the zoning bylaw amendment application Z12-2024. Thank you.
Hey, thank you very much for that. Does the committee have any comments or questions on the report that was just delivered? And the applicant is here. Should there be any questions or clarifications needed? Nothing? You're good? Okay, so there is a recommended motion in front of you. As Alyssa said, she is recommending the acceptance and the granting of the application. I am not going to read the whole thing. There are 11 conditions that are associated with the recommendation. For anybody watching, you can certainly refer to the agenda online to see what those conditions are. With that in mind, I would ask for a mover and a seconder for the recommended motion in front of us. Councillor Westman and a seconder, Councillor Regan. All in favor? And that's carried. Okay, we now have to adjourn our Committee of Adjustment meeting, and that's at 7 minutes after 6. And we'll convene a public meeting under the Planning Act. A mover and a seconder for that, please. Councillor Regan and Councillor Hodgins. All in favor? And that's carried. So this is the zoning bylaw amendment application that Alyssa spoke to that's attached to the same address. Is there anything else you needed to add to that? Nope. So any questions or comments on this? And again, for anybody watching, the recommended, planning staff did recommend the approval of it, of the application. Any comments on this one? So with that, I would ask for a mover and a seconder for that recommended motion. Councillor Hodgins and Deputy Mayor Manders, all in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much. And I would ask for a mover and a seconder to adjourn our public meeting at 8 minutes after 6 to reconvene our regular meeting. Councillor Westman and Councillor Regan, all in favor? And that's carried. I'll thank the applicant for coming. That was easy, and wish you the best of the holiday season. All right. Thanks, Cliff. All the best. We now have a delegation or a presentation, and I'm happy to welcome to the speaker's desk Josh White, who is the Middlesex County Procurement Services Manager. Josh, thanks for coming out to Lucan, and I'll turn it over to you.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me. Through the mayor to council, County Procurement Services has just begun supporting its lower tier municipalities. And with Lucan Biddulph being one of the first few that we're bringing on, I thought it'd be a good idea to come out to council and share what exactly we do, how we've supported the township so far, and what's it looking like going forward. What we envision procurement services ultimately becoming, and then following this presentation, we'll go over the draft bylaw that we've provided for council for review. In the essence of time, some of what I cover, I'll do so at a relatively high level. That said, if any member of council would like me to dig a little deeper into anything, please just ask at the end of the presentation. So with that, how we got here. So prior to 2022, procurement services was decentralized at the county following a study as part of the province of Ontario's municipal modernization program. They recommended a centralized procurement service for reasons why we'll get into shortly. And ultimately that was the creation of my position, which supported both the county and MLPS. This past summer, I hired a procurement officer and as a recommendation as well from that study. And the intent of that procurement officer would be to support the lower tier municipalities. And initial support began this past fall. Next slide, please. So what is procurement services responsibilities? First and foremost, it's achieving best value for taxpayer dollars in a transparent manner. How we do that is by running public competitive procurement processes, increasing the economies of scale wherever possible. And when we say best value, I'd like to point out that it's not necessarily just obtaining the best price, it's ensuring that we're procuring the appropriate goods and service. The second thing that we are responsible for is mitigating risk, which is simply reducing the chances of a legal claim. Again, we kind of do that through transparency, having policies like a procurement bylaw and set procedures, following the applicable trade agreements, legislation, and legal precedent. And then finally, improving efficiency. So kind of in the realm of a payroll department, procurement is all that we do. We know the ins and out of it. So we like to take the burden of township staff of needing to write a 50-page RFP document searching for specifications and handle that and facilitate the procurement process so that they can focus on other aspects of their job. More specifically, what you'll see now on the screen is kind of the day-to-day work of what procurement services do. Administration and adherence to the procurement bylaw, that by and large drives our actions and recommendations. You'll see there everything that's involved with facilitating a procurement process. A couple things that I'll highlight is it's not just the tenders and requests for proposals that council will see that for award, it's also guiding staff on when and where is the appropriate time to use group purchasing organizations such as Canoe and OECM, as well as the assisting with the development of specifications and requirements. So procurement ourselves, we're by no means any sort of subject matter expert on the things that the township is buying. And although the township staff are far more qualified than we are, they still don't have a grasp over every little thing that they may be going out for. Luckily, we're members of the Ontario Public Buyers Association. So when those things that come up that are once in a blue moon that we're not necessarily sure how to ask for what we want, we have access to hundreds of other public institutions who have likely gone out for it and can provide department heads and staff a basis of what to develop their specifications and requirements on. Moving to the next slide, I won't talk it too much. I already brought up mitigating risk, contract management. We assist with the development, execution, tracking, and the renewals and increases that are applicable. And then vendor management, which is something that has over my time in the public sector been an increase of the burden on the department. The number of debriefs that we receive after a request for proposals probably increased 4 or 5-fold. It's become a best practice of suppliers following a bid if they're unsuccessful. So if we'll go to the next slide, in terms of our support for Lucan Biddulph, to date, it's really been ad hoc requests. When staff have reached out to procurement services, we provided support and guidance whenever they've needed. And apologies for the typo there. And then the assistance at the procurement bylaw, which I mentioned will be coming following this presentation. With that, full support for Lucan Biddulph is expected to commence in 2025. So future potential initiatives, some particularly are just for Lucan Biddulph, some are for across the county as a whole. Online bidding. So Lucan Biddulph right now, as I understand, posts their bids through their municipal website. Something that we'll look at doing, which we've done with some of the other municipalities we brought on board, is moving to an online bidding system. We use bids and tenders at the county right now. From time to time, we evaluate our options to see what's out there. It provides the advantage of reaching more potential contractors for every bid that goes out. It's by far the biggest player in the space. But also at the same time, keeping in mind that when there are bids that require local companies to participate, sometimes these online bidding platforms prove a barrier for their participation due to the cost of needing to submit a bid. So we'll look at bids on a case-by-case basis. And if it's not appropriate to put it online through a bidding system, we can do it the old-fashioned way that the township's currently doing it. Identifying common purchases across municipalities. So that boasts for efficiency. So as we're supporting local municipalities, instead of doing 5 different bids for the same service or good, we're only doing one. And also that increases economies of scale, which should lead to better prices for all the municipalities that are involved. A centralized vendor reference database. So we're looking to streamline performance reviews. In my 15 years of doing procurement, both privately and publicly, I can count on 2 hands how many bad references that I've received. So having that written into our bid documents that anybody within the county can reach out to another municipality or to procurement services who would have this logged for a reference and have that ultimately assist with the decision whether or not to accept a tender or proposal from a contractor, I think would be a benefit for everyone. And then other items we would look at are shared professional rosters, things like engineers for the various disciplines, consultants, architects, so that they're set rates across the county. And the same goes for shared contractor programs. And we're looking at things like electricians, plumbers, drainage engineers, or not engineers, sorry, contractors, and things of that nature. So with that, that's a quick overview of procurement services and how we're going to be helping the township of Lucan Biddulph. We're very excited to have them on board, and I know it'll be a successful program. The staff seems very eager for our help. So before we get into the bylaw, I'd like to take any questions from council if there are any.
Okay,
Appreciate
thank you
it.
for that. Josh, questions? Councillor Regan.
Thank you.
Thanks, Josh. So two questions I have. So if there's any issues with performance issues, material issues, like how do you help us with those types of things, legal issues?
So I'll make the decision. So once we get into a heavy legal issue, we can sort of advise, but ultimately you would probably want to seek professional legal advice. When it comes to performance issues, you'll see in the bylaw that's for a draft review, we have set procedures in place for how to conduct them and what would happen if one of those or performance issue were to take place. Procurement services would manage this on behalf of township staff. Township staff would be involved with it and helping complete the performance evaluation, but ultimately it's procurement services that delivers the message and kind of enforces the process whatever way the township wishes to go.
Okay, you said one other. So you mentioned about so as we think about bulk buying. As we go in with municipalities, you need this. I'm just saying, what kind of cost savings can we look forward to?
Well, given that Lucan Biddulph is a relatively small municipality, the quantities that you're going out for might not be as large as some other ones. If we can leverage things, and I'm just going off the top of my head, things as gravel, for example, where most of our municipalities are looking at it, depending on geographic location and things of that nature, as we're pulling more in, businesses will be more hungry for the contract and hopefully providing more pricing as opposed to if you were going on and bought it alone. The one thing that creates a little caution in my mind, and we'll have to figure out how to navigate this, is that there's always a scenario where there's multiple municipalities going out to bid for a particular item as part of a group purchase like this. And in the scenario of the low bidder overall, within a particular municipality, it might have been the second or third lowest bidder. So they're paying a little more for the greater good. So we'll have to go out and we'll be in communication with the municipalities as we're kind of developing the specifications and all that, with the understanding of that we'll look at this at a holistic point of view. And we kind of determine it on a case by case basis. If we were to segregate it out, chances are that the pricing that would be obtained wouldn't be as aggressive as if everybody was going in all together. So.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
I'm just wondering on if there's on a shipping company on a contract, like for everyone to use DHL or Purelator or FedEx, I sign the checks sometimes when the mayor does them between the two of us, and it's amazing how many add-ons there is for shipping charges. And so, which is, they add it on, but if our staff had a choice saying, well, no, we'll use our Purelator number, FedEx number, DHL number, whatever. Even being a small municipality, I think it's amazing probably how much freight charges add up. And I don't know strategically if you've done anything or thought about that and everyone being on the same page on freight. Yeah.
So with freight, and this could go for anything too, when we issue a request for quotation or tender or proposal, we stipulate what the pricing is for. And usually when we list our pricing requirements, we clearly state that everything included with the cost of shipping it in this scenario would be included in the pricing that they submit. With shipping in particular, this may be one of the few options that likely would be a good idea to go through one of the group purchasing organizations. To be frank with you, I haven't done that with a lower tier municipality, but I know it exists. It's something that we can explore and see if there's any sort of set pricing there, if that's something that the township is interested in.
Well, yeah, I think I see what you got from a higher level and higher bids. I understand what you're saying, but I think you'd be surprised at the hundreds of invoices of each municipality of every month of freight charges. And how much better, like how big it'd be, I think unfortunately the municipality government in general loses sight of that cost as opposed to an individual. If you're, buying something on, again, whether we're getting it from Amazon or wherever, again, there's a lot of freight charges for a small municipality. So I can, you times that by everyone else, but I'd like it to be on your radar. If it isn't, it isn't, but yeah, or, or something, or within, and again, an organized thing, because I would hope there would be no pushback from any municipal worker that they got to use a certain freight company to save the municipality money. I'm assuming everyone uses someone else, or we just get billed. And then we see that if under 10-pound item maybe cost us $20 from the supplier, and it could have cost us $8 on a contract that you secured or something. So,
yeah. No, through the mayor to the councillor. Yeah, it's definitely something worth looking for. There's obviously variable costs for certain aspects of shipping products, but the worst worst case scenario, we can test the marketplace and see what everybody has to say. And then we'll assess our options and then make a determination of the best move forward and hopefully at least get some certainty around those aspects of charges that you're bringing up.
Thanks. Any other questions or comments for Josh, please here? Councillor Hodgins.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, through you. Thanks for the presentation, Josh. I think this makes good sense, having the county provide the service for the lower tier municipalities, because I think it can be challenging to do procurement consistently and effectively without having fully trained staff, and it's so I think it makes good sense. In terms of the full support that the county is going to be providing in 2025, and if that's rolling out to all of the lower tier municipalities, is the county going to be staffing up more to have more officers, or is it going to see how it goes, or what's the plan there?
Through the mayor to the councillor, good question, especially at budget time. So we're cognizant of this, and a good thing about our world is that these bids are all public, so it's very easy to see what other municipalities are doing. The number of bids per employee specifically is by and large how we can kind of gauge where we're at. And it also is something that we're taking slowly. So as I mentioned, Lucan Biddulph would be the third municipality that we would be supporting. And we've kind of assessing as we're going slowly, you know, what our workload looks like, how many bids that we're getting and the capacity to take on more. We're confident with Lucan Biddulph. There's another lower tier municipality who wants to hop on early in 2025. We're confident we can kind of fit in there with the number of bids that we're expecting. And as we kind of roll out and have conversations with the other municipalities, yes, there's going to be a lot of bids coming in, but as I kind of mentioned in my presentation, a lot of the municipalities are going out for the same things for a bulk of their bids. So we're hoping that we can find efficiencies in there too that would allow to help it. But talking to the treasurer at the county, we're not going to bring anybody on that we don't think we can support without having further conversations about staffing now. So bringing Lucan Biddulph on, we have no concern that we can help facilitate and service the township as they need it. And then same as we bring on the next one in early 2025 as well. So.
All right, thanks for that. With the vendor management and the centralized approach, with this model or this structure, you know, if one municipality had a really bad experience with one vendor, or their performance was really poor, with a centralized model, could then, you know, the other municipality then use that same feedback with that centralized model? Because I think that would be a benefit as well.
Through the mayor to the councillor, yes, that's the intent of it. And I'm not going to lie, I kind of know in the background, those conversations do happen from time to time as it is. But as I kind of, as I did mention in the risk mitigation component, have it clearly stipulated how and why we're going to be using that information is key to have on there, because the truth is when push comes to shove, if we ever got challenged on a situation where we checked a reference that they didn't provide and we didn't mention that we would potentially do that, the township or the purchaser would ultimately lose in that scenario. But yes, that's the full intent of having this database. Now, how the database is going to operate is something we're going to have to work on with the lower tier municipalities as we go, whether it's just an email to the procurement services department, which we have a procurement@middlesex.ca email, or whether or not we have a SharePoint where specific members of staff at the participating municipalities can have a look at. The thing that we got to be cognizant about is that if there are negative reviews on there, we don't want that going into the public domain. So we want to limit the number of people who would potentially have access to that. But that is the goal of the program ultimately, more than anything.
Great, thank you. And I just have one or two more if I may continue. Is there a cost to the lower tier municipalities for this service? We use shared services like in building, and is it determined how that financial structure work?
Through the mayor to the councillor. So this is all on the levy, so no additional cost to the municipality as you pick up our services. So.
Okay, thanks for that. And my last question, just because we have had some some procurement matters just recently. And there was one discussed earlier at the meeting tonight. We were looking at the sale of some industrial lands, and we debated different options here around the horseshoe with council to decide on whether we put the sale of the lands out for tender or if we put it out on the market. Just wondering if you could provide any suggestions or feedback on that process.
Yep, through the mayor to councillor. So I have seen it done before, and frankly, at a municipality that I've worked with previously, I actually looked to lease out spaces through bids and tenders. The challenge is that it's more geared towards people, the municipalities purchasing from organizations versus the other way around. I think it might be an advantage to have that information out there on bids and tenders. We got to kind of be careful. There's stipulations with our agreements that we can't post bids to receive bids on another platform. If we're using them, it's got to be exclusively through them. But we might be able to find a way that we can navigate it to direct to the Lucan Biddulph website or whatever matter there's doing. But ultimately, I think you're probably going to find more success on the open marketplace as opposed to going through a procurement system.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Great questions. Thank you. Any other comments from council? Okay. Are there highlights to the bylaw that you wanted to speak to, Josh?
Yes, so with the bylaw provided for your review, I've been working with township staff for approximately the last couple months. And it does implement a lot of the points that I kind of made during my presentation. The last procurement policy at the township was approved in 2019. And as you'll see with the document, it almost doubles in size from the previous one. And a lot of that is just going into more detail on pre-existing processes. And then we're adding guidelines as it pertains to the utilization of pre-qualifications and purchasing groups, and then as well as policies and procedures regarding supplier evaluation and performance. The change of significance, I would say, is the increase of value for 3 quotes, increasing from 50,000 to 75,000, and subsequently council's approval threshold being that. So there's 2 reasons why we looked at that. One, in the development of the bylaws that I did at the county and the other municipalities, we kind of looked at a greater scope and noticed that about 90 to 95% of municipalities have this range for 3 quotes between 50,000 and 100,000. So 75 is sort of right nestled in the middle. For transparency, the county increased their threshold for 3 quotes from 50,000 to 100. And then 2, for a particular item, something that would previously fall under 50,000 would be truck purchases, which now, because of inflation and everything going on in the world, kind of falls underneath that 75,000 threshold. So recently, municipalities in the area have been going out for tender for these services, and dealerships from 3 hours away were winning bids over local dealerships by $200-300, and it would just be nice to have the opportunity to purchase the vehicles from the same dealerships that you're servicing them from. So aside from that, there's a lot in there, and if council has any questions or comments now or by the time that staff brings the bylaw to council at the next meeting, I'd be happy to answer them, but yeah, I'd be happy for any questions.
Okay, I don't know if you've had a time to review the bylaw, but as Josh says, it'll come for approval in the first meeting in January. So you can forward any questions that might have if you haven't had the opportunity to review it. But Ron, you did just highlight one area that is new that might be of interest.
So through you, Madam Mayor, if I could just get Josh to sort of review section 4.5, which outlines the procurement review panel. That's brand new. We've never had that before. So maybe Josh, you could just sort of outline what the purpose is of that panel and how and when it would be used.
Yeah, through the mayor to council. So as it comes to the procurement review panel, oftentimes when we have a procurement close, whether it's a tender where pricing's provided publicly or an RFP where a respondent is awarded, we often get feedback unsolicited feedback from other participating suppliers as to why a particular contractor won, and sometimes ultimately feeling that it is unfair in nature and how they bid or something, the quality of the product or service that they're giving isn't what we're looking for. So the purpose of a procurement review panel is that step before it gets the council to try and address any low-hanging fruit as it comes to complaints. So that panel typically includes the township CAO, treasurer, the applicable department head, and myself. As these requests come in, there's a formal process within the bylaw how we would review a particular item in nature and the timelines of which we would respond. Ultimately, if there is no resolution at that point, something may eventually get to council. But again, this is the opportunity for staff to kind of ease suppliers' needs in terms of if they feel like they need to be heard on a particular matter just because they were the unsuccessful member of a particular tender.
That will be an interesting process. Should we ever have to use it? Okay, any last questions or comments from council on this? Okay, seeing none, then Josh, thanks for coming out. We wish you the best for the holiday season. And I would ask for a mover and a seconder to receive that presentation for information. Councillor Hodgins and Councillor Regan, all in favor, and that's carried. Safe travels, Josh. Thank you. Okay. We are now, the agenda's all been moved around. Changes to budget, which don't believe that there are. Any notices of motion? So we do have a motion in front of us for the accounts paid. I need a mover and a seconder that the council of the Township of Lucan Biddulph receive the attached accounts as paid for information as follows. For November 2024, $1,743,835.18. A mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Westman and Deputy Mayor Manders. All in favor? And that's carried. We do need to go into closed session. Would ask for a mover and a seconder to move us into closed session at 6:34. And this is pursuant to section 239 of the Municipal Act. To discuss information regarding the appeal of the official plan amendment number 10 under the following exception, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting municipality or local board. A mover and a seconder, please.